Good afternoon and good morning to those of you out west. Welcome to today's webinar from Metal Architecture Magazine and AEP Span. My name is Stacy Ranella. I'm the editor-in-chief for Metal Architecture, and I'll be moderating today's presentation. Just to cover a few housekeeping items before we get started. It may take up to 5 business days if you are requesting a certificate, so keep an eye out on your inbox and don't forget to check your spam or junk folder. If you have any questions during today's webinar, please enter them using the Q&A section, which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom window. We will address as many questions as possible during and at the end of the presentation. Zoom does have a raise hand function, but since we'll be keeping everyone's mics muted, only use the Q&A instead. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties during the webinar, you can enter a message in the chat, which you'll find right next to the Q&A, and we'll do our best to help. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on Metal Architecture's website by this time next week. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Marie Ortega. Marie has been part of the AEP Span marketing team for over 10 years, developing and driving marketing strategies and product lifecycle management. As a LEED Green Associate, Marie has led assessments in identifying how AEP Span products may contribute toward projects designed and built to meet green building standards or certification. Marie enjoys working on the front line with the AEP Span sales team and customers, providing needed insight or disclosures for their project needs. Marie also works closely with internal stakeholders, supporting strategies that contribute to reducing its environmental footprint. Marie holds an MBA from Claremont Graduate University. In this webinar, Marie will discuss single skin metal panels and LEED standards. Marie, we appreciate you joining us today. Please take it away.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. On behalf of AEP Span, thank you for joining us. We have an hour together, and there is a lot of information in this course. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the major learning points. But know this presentation will be made available to you. So AEP Span is a registered provider with AIA's continuing education system, and this course is registered with AIA. This course is also approved by Green Business Certification, a sister organization to USGBC. Now, the intent of this course is to help make it easier for you all to learn the green performance attributes of single skin metal panels and to understand how they may contribute towards your green building designs and LEED credits. At the end of this course, you'll be able to describe the material properties of metal panels. You'll be able to discuss how metal panels can contribute to new construction projects seeking LEED certification. You'll be able to discuss the importance of environmental product declarations and their role in LEED version 4 and 4.1. And then lastly, you'll be able to discuss the role of material ingredients and some details around HPDs as it relates to LEED version 4 and 4.1. Now here's the course content, which obviously it follows our learning objectives. So let's get started with our first learning objective, which is material inputs and green performance attributes. So single skin roof or single skin panels, metal panels, the material inputs used to produce them contribute to their performance and aesthetic design metal roofing and siding panels are known to offer. This simple illustration breaks down the 6 material inputs used to produce metal panels. So you got the base steel, which makes up around 86% of the material, depending on the gauge, and gauge meaning thickness of the base steel. The standard gauges are typically 29, 26 and 24 gauge, 24 and 22 gauge. So now the lower the number, the thicker the gauge. So there's an inverse relationship. So that's a little quick way to remember, when around the numbers, the lower the thicker, the lower the number, the thicker the base steel. From an architectural or architect specification perspective, it is the 24 and 22 gauge that is primarily used. The remaining 14% of the total material comes from 5 coatings that are applied to the base steel, and each coating serves a purpose. So you have the base steel that is coated with the aluminum zinc metallic coating, also known as zinc-aluminum or galvalume, which provides long-term corrosion protection. Then you have the pre-treatment, which allows for the paint to adhere to the metal substrate. The primer coat comes next, which also provides corrosion protection, and it helps with the flexibility when roll forming the material into metal panels. And the primer coat also supports the adhesion of the top coat or the cool color coating. The top coat or cool color is applied to the side of the panel that is visible to all. So it's those beautiful colors that you see used on metal roofs and sidings. And then the last coating is the backer coat, which also provides corrosion protection, but it also helps with transit abrasion resistance when either the coil or the panels are shipped. And it also provides a uniform look when metal panels are installed with an exposed application where you can see the back side of the panel. Now, of the 6 materials I just shared, 3 materials that are listed here deliver the green performance metal panels are known to offer. So you got the base steel, the aluminum zinc coating, and then that cool top or cool color. These 3 materials make up 95% of the total material used to make metal panels, and we are going to cover each of these 3 materials. So let's talk about the base coat. The base steel. It is 100% recyclable at the end of its life use. It is one of the most recycled materials on the planet and is fundamental to achieving a circular economy. It has an installed life use of over 50 years. Metal panels are factory fabricated to exact project specifications, which minimizes waste on the job site. And then any amount of waste at the job site can easily be recycled and diverted from a landfill. The next green material is the aluminum zinc coating. Again, also, known as zinc-aluminum or galvalume. And that is made up of 55% aluminum and 45% zinc. The aluminum provides a barrier protection and is fairly non-reactive and non-corrosive. The zinc provides the sacrificial characteristics that protects material edges and cuts. Now, there is a study that you can find on ASTM's international website, and it was published in 2015. And I've included a link. So when you get this presentation, there's a link to that study. And it demonstrates that the corrosion protection of a 55% aluminum zinc coating on a standing seam roof system has a service life in excess of 60 years if installed in a wide range of environments using today's best practices. The last material that contributes to the green performance attributes of metal panels is that top coat or cool color. Now, this is a simple chart showing the main paint systems in the market for metal panels, and they are listed in order from durability and performance. So from a LEED perspective, it is those last 2 paint systems at the bottom of the chart. So its PVDF and B paint systems will primarily be specified. And within the context of this course, those paint systems will be the focus. Now, the term cool is used because the paint system has been altered with special reflective pigments that stay cooler with no change in what the human eye can visibly see. So this is how the cool coating works. Solar radiation from the sun reaches the Earth's surface in 3 wavelengths, and it is the infrared radiation wavelength that generates the heat on the surface of a metal roof or siding. The special reflective pigments allow for solar reflectance and thermal emittance. So, most dark pigments usually absorb infrared radiation and the surface will get hotter compared to lighter pigments. But when cool pigments are used, a dark color can offer cool reflective properties, meaning the cool painted metal panels contribute to the building, staying cooler, conserving energy, and saving on energy costs. Now, manufacturers should be able to provide surface radiative performance properties for their roof products. But the Cool Roof Rating Council, also known as CRRC, they also maintain a rated product directory. And in January 2022, the CRRC launched its program for exterior wall products. And I'll expand on cool walls in a few slides. Now, there are metrics used for cool roofs. There is the solar reflectance value, or SRV, which measures the total amount of solar radiation reflected from the surface. So an SRV is expressed as a percentage from 1 to 100. So the higher the number, the more solar radiation is reflected, and the cooler the surface stays while in direct sunlight. Then there's the thermal emittance, which is essentially the ability of the cool painted surface to emit heat away from the surface. So thermal emittance is expressed as a decimal value from 0 to 1. And the higher the value, the less heat will transfer into a building. The solar reflective index, or SRI, is the combined value calculated from the solar reflectance and the thermal emittance. The SRI is on a scale of 0 to 100 and is used to assess cool colors. So the higher the SRI, the more effective the cool color coding is at reflecting heat and essentially contributing to a building staying cooler, helping reduce energy usage and energy costs. CRRC includes SRI values in its program, which helps the end user make an informed decision. Now, roof products must be tested using test methods approved by CRRC. And the key advantage for metal compared to other roofing materials is its SRI values do not deteriorate with time and can remain unchanged for 20 years or more. The majority of manufacturers' PVDF and B paint systems are cool formulated. So here are some facts regarding these paint systems. Both are premium paint systems. Typically, LEED is more expensive. Both provide outstanding resistance to UV radiation with exceptional color retention and resistance to chalking. And the film integrity and chalk and fade warranty is offered for as long as up to 40 years. Now, the PVDF and B paint systems can be modified for better performance in environments where corrosion may be a problem, such as like industrial areas or near saltwater environments. And this modification occurs by essentially applying a thick coat of primer and or clear coat to the top of the aluminum zinc metallic coated steel substrate. Now, earlier I mentioned cool walls. The Lawrence Berkeley National Lab conducted research on cool sidings and confirmed cool sidings do reflect sunlight, as do cool roofs. So cool walls reduce cooling loads, saves on energy usage and cost, and ultimately cool sidings do help mitigate urban heat islands. Now, the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab did write the Cool Walls pilot credit for USGBC's LEED 4.1 rating system, and I will expand on the Cool Wall pilot credit in a few slides. Now, this course, it focuses on USGBC's LEED rating system, specifically for building design and construction. But as you know, there are other green building certification programs, which metal panels may contribute. And so this, these are just a few of those additional green rating programs. And USGBC will be launching its LEED version 5 for building design and construction next month. So so that'll be, I'm sure you all are aware of that, but just wanted to make sure I made note of that to you all. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions.
Thank you for that, Marie. We have a couple questions coming in. First question, you noted the base steel is recyclable. Is it hard to get the coatings off of the steel? How do you separate these separate layers for reuse?
Well, I will, so I will say, so at the end, the amount of the coating is so minuscule that it doesn't, so if the metal at the end of its life use, okay, can be recycled, and that coating does not compromise, the ability to recycle that material. So because that coating, the quantity of that coating is so minuscule, I will say that, let's say metal roofing is or a building with a metal roof is repurposed, and they want to repaint the paint coating. I mean, it should not affect. I mean, there are professionals out there that know how to specifically address the paint needs for metal panels. So, and it can certainly be done. So, so to answer that question, I mean, I will say that, from a recycling process at the end of the material's life use, that coating doesn't impact. It's so minuscule, it doesn't impact the ability to recycle it, to do any additional prepping or removing in order to recycle the material. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. Next question. I have a plow truck wash building and was thinking of using a material like this or a sandwich panel for interior use. Do you think this will work well?
Okay, what kind of project is it?
Plow truck wash building.
Plow truck wash building. I mean, so plow truck wash building. So meaning, is it, so there would be really, so this is specific to a kind of project. My suggestion, because I would have to ask more questions. So is this, so it would be an interior application, but are there, doors that would be, open, or there are no doors in order for the use of this building? My suggestion would be, let's connect outside of this meeting, and we can have a conversation, because I've got questions that would be specific to this project. So I would recommend that we connect after this call, and let's have a discussion, and we can give you whatever information you need for this project.
Sounds good, Marie. Next question. Are all colors available in marine grade paint?
Typically, all colors can be made available in marine grade paint, but it is a special order. Typically, the standard material is not marine grade paint. It is, so if needed, it would have to be requested and identified that is the need for this specific project, and then it can be made available with the marine coating.
Okay, we'll take one more and then we'll get back to your presentation.
Perfect.
How does the panel system get around galvanic action with the steel in contact with aluminum?
Oh, so I will say we have documentations around similar metals, and that is a really important detail. And I will say that, so when so for steel, it's preferred, you would want similar metals versus, and so that is a really important detail to remember, because having those dissimilar metals can compromise the the performance of a product. So so the recommendation is, if it's steel, you want steel fasteners and rivets, versus aluminum, where for aluminum you would want those aluminum like accessories and designs around keeping those dissimilar metals from touching. And we have, their manufacturers will have technical data sheets, laying out those specific, details, and we can arrange for that information to, whoever is asking the question. We are more than happy, and we can send you that technical data sheet.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Let's get back to your presentation.
Excellent. All right. Let's see. Oops. So this next learning objective is understanding how metal panels can contribute to LEED certification. And just to reiterate, we're delving into LEED version 4.1 specifically for building design and construction. So here it is, a high-level snapshot of where single skin metal panels may contribute towards credits within the LEED version 4.1 system. And the 4 categories where metal panels may contribute towards credits is the sustainable sites category, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, and the indoor environmental quality category. And we will cover each of these 4 categories. The first category is sustainable sites, heat island reduction. The intent of this credit is to minimize the effects of microclimates, humans, and wildlife habitats by reducing heat islands. Now, this criteria is straightforward. The coated metal roof material must have an SRI value equal to or greater than the 3-year aged SRI listed on this table. And you can use the initial SRI value if the 3-year aged value information is unavailable. Every paint color has an initial and age SRI value. Now, a metal panel manufacturer works essentially with their paint supplier to conduct the testing for the initial color, right? So like our standard color, our standard colors, we would work with our paint supplier, and this applies to other manufacturers, to get their colors, their standard colors, color tested. However, the manufacturers typically do not test for the 3-year aged SRI value because it is expensive and time demanding to test each individual color. Now, the data listed on CRRC's website is based on color families, and the SRI values of a color family is accepted by LEED if the products are rated by the CRRC. The Sustainable Sites pilot credit for cool walls. So, like cold roofs, the intent is to minimize the effects of microclimates and human and wildlife habitats. To qualify, the building must cover 60% of a building's exterior with a cool wall material that reflects 60% of sunlight. So cool wall material must be opaque to sunlight and exhibit an initial solar reflectance of at least 0.60 and initial thermal emittance of at least 0.75. Now, I mentioned before, a manufacturer should be able to provide this solar reflectance and thermal emittance information for their colors. Now, a manufacturer may list the initial SRI values on their color charts, but their listing on CRRC's directory will list the color families. So if you see that difference, that is why that is why. So I'm just pointing that out. So I wanted to share that information. But you'll want to look for, obviously paint colors with high solar reflectance and thermal emittance values that meet LEED requirements and comply with other energy efficient codes and standards. For the energy and atmosphere category, specifically the optimized energy performance credit, the intent of this credit is to achieve increasing levels of energy performance beyond the established standard in order to reduce environmental and economic harms associated with excess energy use. Now, so for metal roofs, they may contribute to option 2 if the roofing material meets the LEED minimum requirements for SRI values that contribute to energy conservation. Now we're going to move over to the materials and resources category. So the first credit is the building life cycle impact reduction. And the intent of this credit is to encourage the adaptive reuse and optimize the environmental performance of products and materials. So it's essentially an option 2, whole building life cycle assessment, which applies to new construction projects where a life cycle assessment is being conducted for its structure and enclosure. A metal panel manufacturer with an environmental product declaration may contribute toward 1 point. Now, there are 4 pathways in which to possibly contribute 1 to 4 points. And it depends on which pathway is met. In each pathway, the LCA or life cycle assessment must demonstrate a minimum reduction in at least 3 impact categories. 1 of the impact categories must be the global warming potential. The next credit is the environmental product declaration. and I'll use the term EPD to make it shorter. The intent of this credit is to encourage the use of products with available life cycle information. And there are two options in which a project may obtain points towards this credit. Option one, the project must use at least 20 different products from at least 5 different manufacturers that can provide a publicly available LCA or EPD. And then in option two, products with a compliant embodied carbon optimization report or action plan may contribute towards this credit. Now, this slide is a high level of the credit, but in learning objective 3, I'll expand more on the EPDs. This next credit is sourcing of raw materials. This credit encourages the use of products with available life cycle information. The project must use products sourced from 3 to 5 different manufacturers that meet at least one of the responsible sourcing and extraction criteria. So for metal panels, it would be the recycled content criteria that would apply. Now, I do want to point out that in LEED version 4, there is a default 25% post-consumer recycled content that can be used for steel products where pre- and post-consumer recycled content information is not available. And so you may run across this by, when metal panel manufacturers in their disclosures or documentation, when there may be language around this 25% default, post-consumer recycled content. So that's the connection, and that's where that language is drawn from. This next credit is material ingredients. This credit rewards project teams for selecting products with chemical ingredient disclosures. And there are 2 possible options in this credit. Option 1, the project must use at least 20 different permanently installed products from at least 5 different manufacturers that use one of several identified programs that provides chemical inventory of the product to at least 1,000 parts per million. So for metal panels, those programs may be like cradle to cradle certification, Globe Green Tag, or health product declarations, just to name a few. And then in option 2, the project must use at least 5 permanently installed products sourced from at least 3 different manufacturers that have a compliant material ingredient optimization report or action plan. Now, this slide is high level as well. But in learning objective 4, I will expand more on this credit. This next credit is the PBT source reduction credit. The intent of this credit is to reduce the release of persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic chemicals. And it is lead, cadmium, and copper that are specifically called out. Now, metal panels are lead-free and cadmium-free products. A metal panel manufacturer can contribute towards a point by providing a safety data sheet to ensure compliant products are specified. This last materials and resources credit is a construction and demolition waste management credit, which is intended to reduce construction and demolition waste to landfills and incineration facilities. From a manufacturer perspective, metal panels are produced on a made-to-order, cut-to-size basis at the plant, which should minimize waste at the job site. Any remaining panel panel material is 100% recyclable and can be incorporated into the waste diversion recycling process at the job site. The indoor environmental quality is the last of the 4 categories. The low emitting materials credit focuses on reducing chemical contaminants that can damage air quality, the environment, and human health. So when designed and used in an interior application, metal panels may contribute towards this credit. So metal panels are made using hot dipped aluminum zinc coated steel, which is an inherently non-emitting VOC source. The factory applied paint is cured, resulting in the final product being an inherently non-emitting VOC source. So essentially, there is no VOCs emitting from the installed product. All right, so I'm going to pause there. That was a lot of information. So any questions?
We have a few questions coming in, Marie. First question, do manufacturer warranties play a role in the assessment of contributing to LEED certification or other green building certifications?
So do manufacturers' warranty play a role in assessing the contribution to LEED? So no, I mean, warranties do not play a role in assessing, like credit contribution. But I will say, when you look at the service life of a building and you look at the service life of, a product, and the replacement, rate, that information, that influences, decisions that are made or at least consideration, but just and warranties can provide some of that information, but it does not around credit contribution. No, it does not.
Okay, next question. There is a rumor that PVDF systems will become or have become more costly since the resin used to make PVDF paints is also used for EV batteries. Is there a risk of there being a shortage of PVDF paints?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will say that the continued growth of EV productions, yeah, it could affect the supply chain for PVDF. But I will say that PVDF manufacturers are bringing new capacities online. So that's the upside. So they are responding to demand, around a competing segment. And so they are responding by increasing capacity.
Okay, last question, and then we'll get back to the presentation. Are these material attributes unique to AEP span products, or do most other major metal panel companies have green building products?
The material attributes, like everything that I'm sharing in this presentation, material attributes included, they apply to all metal panels. So as an AIA approved course, the content of the course must represent information that applies to the industry. So it applies to all metal panels.
Okay, and let's get back to your presentation.
Perfect. All right, so now we're going to move to the third learning objective, where you will have a better understanding how metal panels may contribute to, or metal panel manufacturers, EPDs, may contribute to LEED and how they're valued under LEED. So as I drill down a little further regarding EPDs, I'm going to break it down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to point out the differences from version 4 to 4.1. So let's get started. Okay. So LEED version 4.1, achieving the EPD credit has been simplified to allow teams to take advantage of the credit that may be more accessible for projects. And project teams pursuing a LEED version 4 may have the opportunity to apply the requirements from version 4.1. Now, here is what the EPD credit looks like under LEED version 4.1. And there have been 4 changes from version 4 to 4.1. The first change was a new disclosure was added, and it was a product-specific Type 3 EPD with an internally critically reviewed LCA conforming to ISO 14025. The next change was the product value, which is used for the purposes of credit calculation. That has changed to 1 product value for all the disclosures that are listed in this. I don't know if you can see my arrow, that are listed in this section. So they used to be broken down. Each disclosure had a different product value for calculation purposes, but it's now been simplified to 1 product. Then third change is that the product-specific Type 3 EPD with a third-party verification, including external verification, and the manufacturer is specifically recognized. The product value is changed, and it has the highest product value of 1.5 products. And then the last change was in option 2. New pathways were developed under LEED version 4.1 as an intent to reward initial first steps in leadership to reduce life cycle impacts and optimize products that have a lowered embodied carbon and other impacts. So a project may use at least 5 permanently installed products sourced from at least 3 different manufacturers who have products with a compliant embodied carbon optimization report or action plan. And by meeting this criteria, a point may be contributed towards the project, and then there's the product valuation that is also applied. So it all is dependent on the different, the criteria that's met. So and I have it here spelled out in the table, and hopefully making it as a good resource for you all. So the next 2 slides, this slide and the next slide, I created them more like as a reference slide that shows how the product valuations are applied under version 4 and 4.1, and just to make it keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. So in this slide and the next slide, what I've done is I've listed each disclosure and how the product contribution for each disclosure is valued under version 4 and 4.1. So here's all the information in 2 slides, and hoping that it is a convenient and useful tool for you all as a quick reference. Here's the second slide with that information. Okay. So there's some facts that are important to know regarding EPDs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight just a few key facts. First of all, an EPD may be created by a manufacturer's representative, or by a third party. And I point out that detail because a lot of information goes into developing a life cycle assessment in APDs. So those who are creating the disclosures are going to need to make some assumptions. And so, is there consistency regarding the assumptions that are being made? So, right, in a perfect world, the answer is, well, yes, but, we don't live in a perfect world. And so, yeah, we have to just be aware, right, that is there consistency around the assumptions that are made when creating these documents. The type 3 EPDs with a third-party certification, including external verification, and the manufacturer specifically recognized is the most stringent disclosure. The third point I want to point out is that EPDs are for disclosure purposes only. They do not necessarily mean a product meets an environmental performance standard. And then the last point that I just want to point out is that EPDs may not always be comparable. There are differences in geographic scope, the product category rules, modeling assumptions, the type of life cycle assessment software that's used, and then the time period that the data covers. Because typically what happens is you choose a date, you can choose data based on like a time period within the last 5 years. But I've seen EPDs where there is a 2-year time period using an average. So, I mean, so there's no consistency is my point there. So just wanted to point out that important fact. Now we're on the last learning objective. So I'm not going to pause here because this last section is super short. So, and then what we'll do is at the end, we'll open it up to more questions. So this last learning objective is learning how material ingredient disclosures are valued under LEED. So here we go. So in LEED 4.1, changes were made to the material ingredients reporting credit to reduce barriers to achievement while maintaining the overall approach to material ingredient reporting. Project teams currently pursuing a version 4, LEED version 4, may have the opportunity to apply the requirements under version 4.1, which may be a benefit for some projects. Here is what the material ingredients reporting credit looks like under LEED 4.1, and I will point out what has changed. So the compliant report options, so all of these sections, right? This section right here, and you can see the arrow. So those disclosures, so that's not changed, but what has changed is under LEED 4.1, if the compliant report has a third-party verification, the product is valued as 1.5 products in the credit calculation. So that has changed. And then the second change is option 2 was restructured under LEED 4.1, and there are 3 compliant paths with each valued based on the reporting verification. So I spell it out here, and again, my hope is that this chart makes it easy for you all. Is a great reference. And this is the last slide. Well, actually, there's a summary slide, but so we're towards the end. So I wanted just to make a quick comment about the disclosures that are required for material ingredient credit. So for manufacturers, developing disclosures overall, it's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. But an HPD is one of several disclosures that may contribute to the material ingredient reporting credit. And I am emphasizing HPDs because It's one of the easiest ways to gather the documentation for compliance within the option 1, material ingredient reporting credit. LEED does have specific requirements for an HPD, and the use of the HPD public repository can help manufacturers in gathering and reporting the information required for HPDs. So I point that out because I know that you all are key influencers on what disclosures manufacturers will pursue. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so we are at the summary. Let's see, what time is it? So, oh, okay. So it's 12:06. So really quick summary. Single skin metal roof and siding panels are made of several material inputs. The base steel, the aluminum zinc metallic coating, and the cool color coating are materials that drive or deliver the green performance attributes metal panels are known to provide. The pigments in a cool color paint system have been altered with special reflective pigments that stay cooler. So the special pigments allow for solar reflectance and thermal emittance, and it contributes to keeping the building cooler, conserving energy, and saving on energy costs. PVDF paint systems are premium paint systems that provide outstanding resistance to UV radiation with exceptional color retention and resistance to chalking and chemical degradation. And then the last point I'll make on this, to summarize this course is metal roof and wall panels can contribute to earning credits under LEED version 4.1. And specifically these 4 categories: it's sustainable sites, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, and indoor environmental quality. And that is the end of the course.
Thank you, Marie. We have one last question, time for one last question.
Okay.
Do the sealants or fasteners used during the metal panel installation contribute or detract from the material ingredients list?
So I will say, these disclosure, the material ingredient disclosure, it really is, it's just being honest on the ingredients in the material. So I guess I don't look at it as, well, detract or contribute or detract. Like our EPDs, we include sealants in our health product declarations. So it's about full disclosure. But I will say that, so they represent the state of the product offered today, right? So sealants are included. So it's about full disclosure. I will say that when we look at our material ingredients as a manufacturer, we do have conversations with our supply chain around, and this would be our chemist and our supply chain team around areas where we can improve, the less hazardous materials. And then you also always have to take into consideration that some of the materials, whether or not how hazardous they are, they also deliver the performance attributes or the longevity, or so there's a function for them. But so they don't, I don't really look at them as contribute and contract or detract. It's an honest disclosure. So that's how I see it. And having said that, yeah, I mean, we are having continuous conversations with our supply chain and our vendors.
Okay. Thank you, Marie. And thanks to everyone who joined us today. That's all the time we have. If you need to reach out with any additional questions, Marie's contact information is currently up on the screen. Just a reminder before everyone leaves, if you would like to re-watch today's presentation or share it with a colleague, we'll be emailing the link to the recording to everyone who registered for the webinar within a week. Once again, it might take up to 5 business days if you are requiring a certificate, so keep an eye out on your inbox and don't forget to check your spam or junk folder. Finally, after you shut down Zoom, you'll be taken to a survey to provide feedback on your experience today. Please take a moment to complete the survey as it helps us to continue to serve your needs in the future. Thank you.